Welcome to Missing Brianna Maitland. I am Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I am so excited, Tim. I am doing so fantastic because you just said, welcome to Missing Brianna Maitland. And as folks know, whenever we have some sort of breaking information that is relevant and legitimized by our colleagues, the professionals, Lou Barry and Greg Overacker, we know that we're good to go on air and give this developing information. So, yeah, I'm doing great because this is something that I think the audience is going to really grab onto, and hopefully we can get some movement in the disappearance of Brianna Maitland because of this. But Tim, how are you today?
Doing great. Yeah, this is the first time I think we've muttered those words, welcome to Missing Brianna Maitland, because typically everything else on this feed was aired on the podcast Missing first. But this is, I think, the first time that we're airing something around the same exact time. So what you're about to hear was taken from our live fundraiser that we recorded on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. So this is like a 40-minute segment with private investigators Lou Barry and Greg Overacker, who have been working on Brianna Maitland's case for years. They work very closely with the Vermont State Police. They work very closely with Brianna's father, Bruce. And so in this conversation, they explain what new information has come about in this case. And yeah, definitely want to hear your thoughts. Please let us know what you think on YouTube or Spotify.
And I said it before, but I find it really interesting and kind of important to let people know that this is the first time you and I had heard this information. So we're reacting to it in real time. Everybody who joined that virtual fundraiser, we had over 100 at any given time. They were contributing to the conversation in the chat. So questions that we were having, people in the chat were discussing essentially the same questions. And for anybody who hasn't heard it yet and you're listening to this for the first time, you'll probably have those same questions as well. And if you can think of something else, yes, please contribute to that. Please leave your comments and ask these questions. We had a lot of good ones. A lot of people wondering, is this individual connected to this individual? Or is it the same thing as what we've seen out here about, where the picture of our car came from or something like that? It is a significant lead that was approved for distribution publicly by Lou and Greg. And again, said it before, if this wasn't going to be important or if they didn't think that there was some traction to it, they wouldn't have told us and they wouldn't have gone public with it.
Okay, so if you have any information on the disappearance of Brianna Maitland, please call the Vermont State Police tip line at 1-844-84-VTIPS, and that's 8477. So it's 1-844-848-8477.
And if you want more information on private investigations for the missing, you can go to investigationsforthemissing.org. If you'd like to give, there's a donate button right there, and any little bit counts, any little bit helps, goes towards the expenses that the licensed private investigators need in order to help families find their missing loved one. And it was founded by Bruce Maitland, as most people know at this point, and his daughter is Brianna Maitland, and it was founded in honor of her. So if you want to support the cause, if you want to support Bruce, Brianna, and all of the families out there who are experiencing these tragic circumstances, again, $5, $10, whatever, it goes a long way.
All right, thanks a lot for listening. And again, this episode previously aired on Missing, so if you want to hear a new episode with Greg and Lou that we are planning, you might want to subscribe to Missing as well, because you'll probably hear it there first. Okay, everybody, thanks a lot. We're going to break quick for commercial here, and then we'll be right back with Lou, Barry, and Greg Overacker.
The biggest reason we wanted to come on tonight was that here we are 21 years later, and we're getting still good information. And we just got a tip. Now, without being involved in these cases, it's hard to envision how they evolve sometimes, but it's a learning process, and you're trying to figure out what happened in a case like this. And timing is extremely important. all we know for sure is that she left work at 11:20 p.m. period. That was it. And we had some sightings. First at 12:30, her car was there. Then at midnight. But most recently, we got some information that there's no reason to question the credibility whatsoever. That somewhere between 11:30 to 11:45, time unknown, a couple passed the vehicle. The car at that point was there. The headlights were on, the doors were shut. So they talked about it and said, geez, maybe it's a woman who broke down, maybe she needs help. So they turned around to come back, and they saw what they described, both of them, as a male subject walk in front of the headlights, car door open. According to the male subject, that was the only person in the vehicle. So they were going to stop, but he was concerned because his girlfriend was on that side of the car. So he went down the road, and they were almost struck by a silver-colored, what he believed to be a Honda, coming extremely fast in the other direction. So they turned around very short distance down the road, and they saw the brake lights on this vehicle come on. Now they're fairly certain, although not 100% positive, that this vehicle stopped at the scene and then took off. When they passed the scene again, as far as they know, no one was there. And this car was traveling, again, at an extremely high rate of speed, so much so that they couldn't catch up with it, and they have no idea where it went to. At this point, that vehicle was heading in the direction of St. Albans, Enosburg, that area, heading west.
Away from the Black Lantern?
Yes, that's correct.
So it gets a little confusing, but Lou, tell them how they make each pass, because what happens is they pass the Dutchburn home multiple times. And kind of tell it in that way.
Yeah, the first time they pass was about 11 o'clock, and there was nobody there, no car there.
In which direction are they heading in at that time?
They were heading east.
And I want to just clarify for anybody who is just kind of popping in right now. Maybe they're in the chat. They're not sure who we're talking about. We're talking about Brianna Maitland, right?
This is correct. Yes.
Okay, we're talking about Brianna Maitland. All right, continue.
So they're heading east. So in other words, they're heading past the Dutchburn home towards the Black Lantern.
That's correct. And they stopped to make a cell phone call where there was service, and they were invited back to St. Albans to go to a party, and they were debating or a dance or something, whether they should go or not. And then they turned around, decided to go. That's when they passed the vehicle, and they saw the vehicle there with the lights on, doors shut, didn't know who or anybody was there, if anybody was there. So they turned around short distance up the road and decided to come back to see if it was a young female that perhaps might need help or something. And that's when, on the way back, they saw this male, what they describe as a male subject, walk in front of the headlights.
So that's the third pass.
Yes.
That's the third pass past the
That's the third pass, yeah. And the door opened. And that's when they were almost struck by this other vehicle. So they turned around again to go back and saw the taillights, the brake lights come on, and believe the vehicle stopped. And by the time they got there, which was, you're talking less than 2 minutes, the vehicle was gone. No one was there that they saw. And the door was open, the lights were on, and that was it. They never caught up with the vehicle. And that was basically their story. And it changes our theory again. Greg, you want to get into that a little bit?
Greg, before you do, can you just describe the vehicle again?
The vehicle that almost struck them?
Yeah.
It was a late 90s, early 2000s gray or silver Honda. And this is all based upon a very fleeting image of this vehicle coming towards them and passing them. So how accurate it is, he was the witness was pretty adamant, but I don't know.
Was it a Honda pickup or a Honda Civic or
no? It was a Honda Civic.
Civic. Okay.
Type, yeah.
So they described him as a tall, stocky man, which I always thought stocky meant short and stout, but apparently I'm wrong. tall, stocky man standing in the headlights, and he's actually obscuring his face as though he just didn't want them to see him. They
Standing in the headlights of Brianna's
car, yeah.
Walking in front of it. He had a black hoodie on, and he turned his face over to the side and put his hand up when they passed.
So to not be seen?
Presumably.
Speculation, yeah.
Just real quick, I know that there was Brianna's boyfriend who, or ex-boyfriend at the time, I guess, who shut one of the doors that evening. Are we saying this is not him?
No, it's not.
No, this would not have been him. It was
him.
Too early. And that individual, unfortunately, who's deceased now, has given so many versions of that story over the years that it's very difficult to put any credence into any one particular story.
So on that pass, when they're coming past and they see him, so this is a boyfriend-girlfriend couple. Who are still together today. She's now closest to the car. They were going to stop, and he felt that it was sketchy. And she's vulnerable because she's near that side of the road. So they decide not to stop, and they continue on. They slow down and then they continue on. As they go past the Dutchburn home, this car comes at them and almost hits them. And they said he was going, rapidly towards them. So she turned around in her seat and saw, as they got up the road, and saw him hammer the brakes. So they're assuming he stopped. They go, is it to the covered bridge, Lou?
Yes.
Yeah, they go. So we know how far it is, and it's literally minutes for them to turn around there and come back. And when they come back, the man at the car they can't see him anywhere. So they're making a pretty good assumption that he got in the car and left. Now, one of the things that I think the female said was that Brianna wasn't there. She had no way of knowing that. I think what she was basing that on is the man appeared to be alone. He didn't look like he was appearing to contain anybody or anything like that.
However, if their timing is accurate and that silver car did stop and pick up the male subject, if they also took Brianna, especially if she was struggling or even not struggling, unconscious or whatever, it's going to take a period of time to get another person from one vehicle into that. We don't think there was time enough.
Yeah.
So we're now thinking that perhaps whatever happened between the Dutchburn house and Black Lantern, or the Black Lantern and the Dutchburn house. And that vehicle was dumped there.
They must have had some sort of a contact with her in between those 2 points, which, so, when you start thinking about somebody doing this to Brianna, no one pulled up to her that late at night when she's leaving the Black Lantern and saw her from their car and said, there's a girl alone in a car. I'm going to, abduct her or whatever. That can't be how that happened. I mean, they wouldn't even know who it was in the car. Somebody had to be waiting, which makes sense. I mean, it wouldn't be difficult to sit there and wait. Now you rethink, okay, if there's 2 men involved, with somebody driving the car and somebody at the Dutchburn home, did that person get into the backseat of her car? I mean, that was a stowaway theory, was a theory that had been around for years. And so it's at least plausible now. It's in play, and her car was a big old boat, and she probably never locked the doors.
Got in her car at, like, the Black Lantern.
Yeah. So that was a theory that was always around. And, in my book, I kind of talked about that. And I said, that road, you're traveling on that road, you're doing 50. Would be normal speed. To pop up from someone's back seat and give them a heart attack, you kind of at the will of them driving off the road, having an accident or whatever, but it's doable. It can happen. Something obviously did happen there at the Dutchburn home, or it could be something different. It could have been him alone taking it up there to try to hide the vehicle or something. But it would seem as though he knew that this other car was coming to pick him up. He's in conjunction with that other car.
Okay. Diane asked a question here just to clear up any confusion. Is this a skier?
Who's the skier?
The witnesses?
I think that's what she's asking.
No.
Yeah.
The world travelers, probably.
No,
exactly.
No. This
right,
is,
because that was like hours later.
Yeah, that's at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
No, they were had gone out to dinner.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it had nothing to do do with anything. And one of the things over the years we discounted was the person in the back seat theory, because we felt, okay, well, how did they get out of there? They didn't have a vehicle. Well, now all of a sudden, there's that strong possibility that there was another vehicle that we were before this it was unknown to us.
Was there any investigation done at the Black Lantern parking lot in the little area where employees park their car?
Investigating relative,
like any sort of like disturbances, any sort of signs of like a struggle there or something?
At the Black Lantern?
Yeah.
No, Bruce went to get the phone records 9 days after she disappeared, and the police hadn't even been there to question anybody yet.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well,
that's in the book. Yeah, that's horrifying.
Did anybody ever like comment that they heard some sort of yelling or anything around the Black Lantern?
No, you know, if you look at the pictures of the Black Lantern, there's a parking lot there. It's very intimate because it's so small and it's such a small neighborhood and whatever. I mean, if you were looking out the window at night, you would see what was going on. But if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't know. I mean, somebody could go over and get in their back seat and lay down. That car, the seats were like couches. They're so big. I mean, you could get in there and lay on the floor. And if she doesn't specifically look in her back seat, she's never going to see somebody back there. So I mean, it's feasible. It's workable, you know.
Especially if they're wearing a black hoodie.
Yeah. To your point, Lance, also, don't forget, this is 2004 in a very small town in Vermont. People were not abducted regularly. So initially, okay, maybe there were mistakes made at the scene, and the police are the first ones to admit it. But they're also understandable mistakes. I mean, Greg recently talked to a law enforcement officer who said car was off the road at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. Happened all the time. You know, happens all the time up there, right?
I need to talk to this person again, and I'll elaborate more if we talk again about it. But for now, it was a very short conversation. But he said he was on duty that night, and he heard the calls coming in about the car being there. We've never heard that before. That law enforcement was getting calls about Brianna's car that night, and through the night. Now, I said, what? And he said, look, we find cars all the time. And, you know, when Lou says this and tells me this, I believe him. But I'm like, it seems so odd. It's just hard to register that in your head that you don't stop and find out what is going on. He said, we would take down plates and make a note of it and come back later. He goes, because it happens all the time. And he goes, 99.9% of the time, it's just somebody's had too much to drink. They don't want to talk to you. They'll be in the next day to get their car. And, you know, that's their right or whatever. But he really made it a point to say that was a really common thing.
And also note that the fact that law enforcement got calls is not any to any specific location. In other words, it wasn't like the state police got calls or the local police. There weren't any local police, but so to say law enforcement did this is a general statement where one call may come into a certain location and the other ones aren't even aware of it.
And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
Yeah. Well, we're blowing up here with questions. Just fire a quick one to you, a couple of quick ones. Lilith is asking if is there any camera surveillance of her getting in her car? And then Tommy asked, did she have any acquaintances that lived near the Lantern or the Dutch Burn?
So there's no surveillance.
No cameras whatsoever.
I think Jared is asking about, or I'm sorry, the question asker is asking about someone walking distance.
There's not a lot of walking distance between the Lantern. We are looking into the fact that there's a residence where there was some connection, but that may or may not be relevant. I think that's most likely we ruled out that it is, but it's really yet to be.
That's walkable, right, Lou? That
is walkable. Yes.
Yeah. And that was really intriguing for a few reasons, but we're not so sure now.
Okay. So what about acquaintances that live near the Lantern or the Dutch Burn? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez, guys.
Wow, guys. Yeah. So how does this change, the work that you guys are doing on the case?
Well,
Well,
the one thing that we wanted to bring up, I've got a lot of really bad shit to say about some people that I'm not going to do. But
thank you for that.
yeah. Well, one thing that I think is important for everybody to realize, because there's a lot of people that are really invested in Brianna and Maura's case too, Maura Murray's. It's awesome to see that. It's a really great community, and they discuss it at length, especially Maura's on her Facebook pages and stuff. But one thing that Lou and I have discussed a lot lately is that the names that kind of get thrown out there as to people who are interesting, let's say, maybe not people's of interest. I don't know if that's how you could qualify them, but understand something, that there are people that aren't public knowledge that are far more interesting than those people. So when you hear, and I don't even want to say their names, but you hear CM, which everybody in Maura's community will understand who that is. There are people that are far more interesting than he is, and it's unfortunate that we can't make them public, but just keep that in mind. It's good to know. And it's also something that's going to come up is why these people didn't come forward sooner. And that can be talked at length. This is kind of like the episode of Seinfeld when Jerry asks Kramer, if I murdered someone, would you tell me? And he goes, yup. A lot of us are that way. If I knew something, I would immediately go to the police. There are people that don't, and it's hard to wrap your head around, but I promise you they have the reasons. And I would say that their reasons were pretty good, wouldn't you, Lou? I mean, fairly human reasons.
Understandable, certainly.
Yeah.
So Amanda asks, are you able to get records regarding who owned a Honda of that make during that time?
No.
Tried.
We tried, the state police tried, and they're not available.
If you have a person's name, can you look that, like if you have someone that you think it could be, could you look through those people's records and try to find some kind of car that fits that description?
Maybe, and we've checked all that we can check, and there's been nothing I don't know how many checks have we made, Greg, about people that have been named, and just nothing matches.
That gets a little sketchy too, right, Lou? Because the witnesses describe it as a gray or silver or light blue. It's at night, it's late, Honda, and they kind of describe it. And I think he was pretty positive of what he thought it was. But, a lot of cars look alike. And you'll notice that, like now I drive a small SUV and I go out in a parking lot. They all look at the same. It's like all these different car manufacturers get together and go, what shape vehicle are we going to make this, And they all make ones that look exactly the same. So there was cars there that would resemble those at that time too. So it could be mistaken. So then you don't know what you're looking for, kind of. But he was pretty certain.
Yeah, but even like at the time, you don't know something bad's gonna happen or has happened, and you're not categorizing it in your brain as something important on that level that you need to like fully describe to somebody else.
Right.
And even if you try to do that, you're going to forget it. Like, it's just the way the brain works. But I think knowing like around a Honda Civic is like very good. Like, that's very good. But I will say, to Amanda's question, if, you're able to get records on who owned a Honda at that time, like if you guys can't do that, then like that's saying something. If the two of you aren't able to do that with the people that you work with and the connections and the state police, like, what does that tell you though? Like, is it not that car? Was it not like registered? Was it a junker that they pulled from somewhere? Like, what's your theory on that?
We don't know what year. We don't know what color. We don't know what state it might have been registered in. Was it owned by the person? Was it borrowed? Was it one of the individual's girlfriends?
Or country? It could have been from Canada.
Yeah. I mean, if I wanted your vehicle history, I can do that. And it may, I'm not sure how far back it would go, but it would give you a history of every vehicle you ever owned. But if you just shoot it out there as who owned this type of vehicle in that part of the state in that year, that's not a thing.
Greg, they do it all the time in the movies. I see it.
Yeah, they do it all the time in the movies.
If we were to identify, or the state police were to identify a strong person of interest, and they happen to drive or be associated with a vehicle like that, that's strong circumstantial evidence, but it's still only circumstantial evidence. It means, nobody got a plate number. That's all we know about the vehicle.
So they actually kind of semi-pursued the car afterwards.
Yeah, he did. He couldn't catch up with them. Yeah, he tried to.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
He said they were going 65 plus, and he couldn't catch it.
The person knew that they were being pursued.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or suspected they might be, yeah.
Yeah, they must have been going much faster. And those are small, really rural roads.
Well, I'm sure if they saw the brake lights come on, then the other car saw them turn around. That would only make sense. Because I'm sure they're looking in their mirror, and all of a sudden, oh, man, they're coming after us, and they disappeared.
So whatever happened there, he knows that other car's coming to pick him up. So whether that other car knew he was at the Dutchburn home or not, we don't know. But here he's out in front of the vehicle, and when she turns around and looks in the rear view and sees him hammering on his brakes, he's probably out there, here I am, or something to that effect. And then he gets in the car and they're gone. And they do the loop right there. It's, what is it, Lou? A couple tenths of a mile down the road?
Yeah, if that, yeah.
Yeah.
So take 2 minutes up and
turns
back.
Around, comes back, and takes off after him.
That's our theory today. Information could come in tomorrow, which totally blows us out of the water. That's the thing about an investigation. And how many times have we changed our theories over the last 10 years or whatever, Greg?
Yeah. To initially hear this, after, spending all this time with Lou and saying we need one thing to sink our teeth into, one thread to pull on, and then someone tells us, I saw someone, I laid eyes on someone standing in front of Brianna's car in that literally short time frame. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. That's it. That someone saw someone there, a man there. So whether it's going to lead us further, but we're hoping that this, and the public knowledge of it, will take it further.
Well, that's it.
Well, it's out there now.
21 years later, we got this tip. We just got another one last week based on the chat about us being on the show, if I'm not mistaken. And then
no kidding,
we had gotten another one that may or may not have any validity to it about, a month or so ago, maybe 6 weeks. So the information, there's still information out there.
I did a podcast with a guy, and he lied to me. It's a long story, and I don't know if I want to go into it now. At some point I will. But he's adamant in his podcasts that rewards don't solve anything, that rewards don't pay off, and maybe statistically, statistics can be misleading and situations have nuance to them. He's basically saying no one pays it out and says, here's your payment, thank you for your tip, and it solved this case. But this tip came after the reward was offered for Brianna, and they said, we don't want any money.
Oh, that's interesting. Here's
the tip, and we hope it helps you, but we don't want a thing. So that helped. They said, we sat down, we talked about it, and it was time, and we can come forward, and we jogged our memories about a few things, and they came forward. So it does help.
Well, guys, yeah, this has been kind of a bit of a bombshell at the end of this evening here. Would love to catch up with you guys on a full episode sometime.
Yeah, let's do that.
If we can, that would be fantastic. And talk about all these scenarios and this new lead. But thank you both so much for joining us here tonight, and thank you everyone who's listening, who's watching, who's donating. We appreciate every moment of your attention on this, and just want to give a big thanks to all of our guests here tonight: Julie Murray, Bobby Tagavi, Dr. Trace Sargent, and you guys, Lou Barry and Greg Overacker, these wonderful private investigators. This is a great organization, and I hope we get as many donations as we possibly can. Very honored to be a part of this nonprofit and to be hosting this fundraiser tonight.
And the donations don't have to end tonight. If you donated, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. But if it comes up in conversation with family or friends or whatever over the weekend, you're like, you know what, I just happened upon this thing on YouTube and I just discovered this organization, or if you know somebody who's in a similar situation who needs this help, again, $2, $5, $10, whatever. If you just spread the word, a little goes a long way.